Today, we discuss tight end tiers, tight end strategies. Of course, we're going to talk some Gadsden here. Can't talk tight ends without talking him. Going to talk about how our perception of this position has changed, stayed the same, and how we are approaching it to win Dynasty Fantasy Football Championship. And welcome into the Dyno Construction Podcast. Justin joined with David and JP. David, I know you're a little bit under the weather. Is that true, or is it just because I beat you in one of our leagues this weekend?
Look, if that were the reason, I just wouldn't be here, right? No, I'm feeling like crap today. My roommate got me sick. And toughing it out for the folks at home, though. Appreciate you guys. Want to do this show with you guys. So here I am. Sorry if I say something stupid.
David, the audience and us, we're used to it. They'd be surprised if neither of us say something stupid. That's what would worry them. JP, how you doing?
I am doing pretty good. The Dynasty teams are looking solid. Still have one team that's 4-4, and I feel like I'm scoring a ton of points, and it's just not going my way. Not going my way. Hopefully I can secure a playoff bye somewhere.
I did a dance last night when I had one of my Dynasty teams win against the league medium. I still lost for the week, but I got to 7-9, and it's huge for my chances of making the playoffs because it's such a frustrating season. It's a great on paper roster. Everything's fine. My girlfriend just looks at me. She's like, "Is everything okay?" I'm like, I won against the league median. She's like, "Congrats!" I'm like, thank you. I felt seen. So yeah, it's always fun. It's frustrating when those leagues don't go the way that you want them to. Please hit that like, hit that subscribe if you are not subscribed. Would love to. We get about 50% of our viewers are not subscribed. Easiest way to help the channel. So we're gonna hop right into our community question about strategy. So first, we're gonna read the listeners' response. If you want to skip right to tiers, skip right to tiers. We'll have timestamps below within the first couple hours of this being up. That being said, last week's community question we have audience answers for is, how has this season's tight end production and injuries changed your strategy at the position? And first answer from friend of the show, Trav Bob. For tight end premium 1.75 or more, leagues I'm contending purely off of tight end production, so definitely okay buying starting tight end production, 12 to 15 points. Then a more valuable wide receiver that scores maybe 0, 6, or 12. Those wide receiver names, David threw out like a Matthew Golden type. You might see that type of production, honestly, from Jamison Williams, who's valuable, more valuable than a lot of crusty tight ends, right? Scoring 0, 6, or 12 is not out of the, there's a lot of wide receivers, boom bust wide receivers versus a Noah Fant is a solid 2 tight end premium start right now, right? He's a solid flex, right? Crusty, ugly names. So definitely understand where Trav's coming from, especially in tight end premiums. Of course, in a non-tight end premium, this is entirely different where those types of guys are kind of irrelevant. And JP, next community question. Can you go ahead and read that one to us?
Yes, this is from David Covington, and his response is, I feel like I can't get a top guy in tight end premium. If I can't, I'm happy getting one of the lower tier vets like Hunter Henry, Goddard, Andrews, Hawk, Njoku, and some third round rookie types and praying, which those types have been doing pretty good. And he also said, the recent success of high-end rookies make me feel more comfortable drafting a really good prospect highly in rookie drafts. Yeah, I mean, lately we've seen Brock Bowers and Tyler Warren. They've been really, really good prospects, and they've hit right out of the gate. It makes me think myself that maybe I shouldn't just take these upside tight ends. Let me take these guys that they were really good in college, and they've already shown they were really good. Like Tyler Warren dominated. Brock Bowers dominated even as a sophomore in college at Georgia. Harold Fannin, he was in a smaller school, but we've said over the offseason that he still played good against like teams like Texas A&M, Penn State, and he had 1,500 yards in college. It's like, so yeah, these really good college players, I'm more likely to take them now. But another part of what David had said there that has been making me think a lot about the tight end position is these later round guys. If you look at our wide receiver tiers, only 4 of the top 32 are guys that were drafted outside of the top 18 rookie picks. So that means 88% of those guys are taken in the top 18 for the wide receivers because those lower end guys, they're just not hitting. But when you look at tight end, outside of the top 18 rookie picks, 57% of them are in our top 21 tight ends here. So 12 of 21 were not taken early. So we're seeing guys like even Brenton Strange came up for waiver wires in a lot of leagues. Jake Ferguson, Tucker Kraft was taken behind Luke Musgrave in his own draft. And same thing with Mark Andrews and Hayden Hurst. So it's like, wow, we should just be taking the shots on these late round guys and even guys that didn't even make it in your 4th rounds of rookie drafts. I'm looking at like Gunnar Helm. He's flashing right now. And I just think we need to be taking these shots. Like I even saw that Mitchell Evans and Jackson Halls of Buffalo, that these 2 rookie tight ends, they're ranked top 5 by PFF for all tight ends as rookies. So I was like, let me just go ahead and take a shot on these rookies just to see if they flash.
Definitely interesting perspective. And last question here, Kyle Kluda, another of our listener league. All three of these guys are members of our listener league. Thanks for the support, guys. David, go ahead and read that one for us.
Yeah, he says the only major switch, which I believe has been shown and coming for a couple of seasons, is I no longer believe in the tight end year 3 breakout window. They need to show something way sooner. There are still tight ends that are going to break out in year 3, but why draft in Dynasty? Like, I know it's Dynasty, it's a long-term game, but you drafting someone you don't want, like, you don't expect production from for 2 to 3 years. Maybe a high-end, like, upside quarterback like Jalen Milroe. Maybe you're okay with that. But for a tight end, probably not going to let him sit and just rot away on your bench for 2 to 3 years. So I get that. Jake Ferguson, he's in his 3rd year right now, I believe, right? Or is he a couple years after? It's right around that. He might be his 4th or 5th, but he's right around that window. So like, it still happens. But I think the major point is here is, like Justin was saying off air, if that guy is going to break out in year 3, you can buy him cheaper later. So don't worry about it. And then just a couple of things I wanted to throw in. Me personally, I think this season has really highlighted the importance of a few things for the tight end position, and I don't think draft capital is one of them, as JP just highlighted. I think first of all, it's hard to predict a situation, but you need him to be a top 2 or 3 target depending on passing volume, and you want some creativity. You want him to be able to move around the formation. You don't just want him in one spot. You want him to be able to line up in line, outside in the slot, maybe in the backfield occasionally. Next thing, run after catch. All these top tight ends can run after the catch. Every single one of them. They're very good with the ball in their hands for their size, for their speed. And then I don't want him to be, he doesn't have to be an elite blocker, but I want him to be good enough to block, to be on the field 80-90% of the snap. You get all those 3 things, you'll find guys like Tucker Kraft, Tyler Warren, these guys all fit that bill. So that's just my personal takeaways. I think those 3 things are very important.
Holy smokes, is Tucker Kraft fun to watch after the catch too. Like that play where he injured a guy, stiff arming him to the ground practically or whatever. I don't know. Like he is a man out there on the field. It's fun to watch. And when you watch like Hawkinson, for example, right now, he's lost that after the catch, right? He's a catch and fall down guy. And the people also say his route running has fallen. I'm not a route running expert, but it's the fact that he is catch and fall down. He's in the Zach Ertz territory now. That definitely has him, having fallen off a cliff value wise quite a bit. So you do need those athletic guys with the ability to go after the catch, run into guys. They have to have that dog in them almost. And just like at the position here, I do think one interesting thing to talk about is what we're going to do with Bowers if he has a down year 2. Was his year 1 good enough that it's injury partially, right? But if he stops producing, right? We were talking before, and we're going to talk more about Laporta, for example. Laporta not producing like he did year 1 since year 1, right? So much of that is artificial value. Is Bowers right now a sell because we don't expect him to produce? Is he going to start producing post-injury? I think it's something we really have to talk about, how we deal with both of those situations when we talk about tier 1, because it's kind of interesting. We know if they're not producing top end, they're not really super relevant for us. So is holding value at the position. Like McBride's producing, Bowers currently isn't. A lot of it's injury. So should we be holding guys like Bowers, or should we be trying to flip them when they're not, if we can still get 3 firsts-ish of value for them? Is just something I want to talk about in tier 1, or right now, depending, probably tier 1. And before we move on to our tiers, our community question for next week: if you want to have your name shouted out in the show, you can tell us to even call you friend of the show. If you're not friend of the show, you can become our friend through this process. Community question for next week: how has the season's RB production injuries changed your strategy at the position? You can reply to us at X at DynoConFF, Gmail or DynoConstructionFF@gmail.com. You can comment in the YouTube video below. Would love to hear back with your replies. Again, how has this season's RB production injuries changed your strategy at the position? There will be a mega thread pinned in the comments. So that is our community question. Strategy. Strategy is important, but we need to, our tiers is also going to be a lot of strategy, right? How do we handle this? But strategy with more context now. So it's not really just ranking we're going to be doing here. We're going to give you our ranks, the order we have these players roughly in, as well as actionable advice. And JP, can you start us off with tier 1 right here?
Tier 1 consists of Brock Bowers, Trey McBride, and one new addition here with Tyler Warren, who has been amazing this year. And Justin, I know you were a big Tyler Warren believer, and that has paid off because right now he is tight end 5 in points per game as a rookie, and yeah, he's definitely paying dividends for anybody who invested into him.
Just looking right here at Bowers in tight end 9 in points per game, has had a lot of injuries. He's not being a real difference maker so far. It's hard to say how much of that is injury versus situation versus any of these factors, right? So I guess I do want to bring up that question again. I kind of posited it a little bit in the opening when we were talking about our community question, the strategy at the position. There's a chance, right? And we're probably going to know in the next 3 weeks, right? Does Bowers drop a 25 to 30 point game? Right? Something like that, or a 12 target game. Maybe he reaches 22 because it's Geno throwing at him and he doesn't get in the end zone, but he honestly, 12 target game should be 25 to 30 in a 2 tight end premium. Does he show that high end ceiling again? What if we don't? So if that happens, I think he stays here and there's not much of a conversation. Do you guys agree that if he shows after the injury, there's no concerns, right? Now let's look at the other situation. I just want to talk about how do we advise our listeners to be proactive and kind of get ahead of the curve if Bowers over the next 3 to 5 weeks is still scoring 14 and a half 2 tight end premium points or 1.75 tight end premium points, which is fine, but it's not difference making, right? You're getting pretty similar production, honestly, from Noah Fant with Joe Flacco, right? Or a lot of time from Hunter Henry, you'll see something in that rough range of production. Right? It's not difference making. If he's producing like that and he looks like he's trending in the direction of Sam Laporta, which we'll talk about what we want to do with him, just do we have any concerns about that? Is just the first question, or is this just buy if it looks like that and people panic? David first.
I mean, there has to be some level of concern, but if there's like a panic meter, it'd be like a 3 out of 10, maybe, I guess. In my process, personally, I think on this show, a lot of the times we try to look from a big picture and, view so that we're not getting trapped in on a take lock or something like that. But every now and then you do have to narrow in on a player in their situation and say, are his struggles explained by other things, other factors, or does he just is it a year 2 slump and he actually is not as good as we thought? A lot of it's injuries with Powers, but if he comes back from the injury and still sucks, we have to kind of remove the injury from that consideration. Then we think, okay, is this offensive situation conducive to him succeeding? Is this offensive situation going to change next year if we don't like it? Those kind of questions you have to ask yourself. If I'm not competing, it's going to take a lot for me to sell low on Brock Bowers. I'm going to trust that value is coming back. If I'm competing, I may have already tried to sell him if I need the points. You could get really good return for Brock Bowers. You could get probably maybe not a tier 1, but tier 2, certainly tier 3 wide receiver, depending on how you break them up. You get a solid quarterback, very good quarterback. You get a very good running back, maybe even one of the best. If I needed the points, I may have already traded him. But if not, I'm holding.
And yeah, I guess the question isn't really do we want to sell low on him, right? The question is, it's pretty easy to just explain the injury away. Do we want to try to sell him for a tier 2 wide receiver for an Amon-Ra St. Brown type? Is that a risk mitigation at this point, or is that selling low? I guess is more the question. I don't know what your opinion on that type of thing is, JP.
Personally, I think that I view him much more as a buy. I mean, let's not forget he set the rookie record for all receivers last year in receptions. It wasn't just tight ends. He broke all rookie wide receivers, tight ends, most receptions of all time, and also the most receiving yards for a tight end as a rookie of all time. I think he's just one of those guys that it's way too early to say this, but he just has the skill set and everything that you want to become one of those tight ends that could be, in the conversation for the Hall of Fame. And I think that's just so rare. I mean, you watch him, like we talked about with Hawkinson, he's not a catch and fall down guy, that's how we defined Brock Bowers. And he's also a guy that had really good hands, making one-handed catches when he contested as well. And I think the difference between what he did and Laporta was not only was it a better performance, but Laporta was playing in a top 3 offense and scoring. So he was a big beneficiary of that. I mean, they had multiple different receivers they could go to, like Amon-Ra. You have to account for him. You got to even Jamo over the top. So I think that's kind of the big difference is Laporta did it in possibly the best environment you could have asked for with Ben Johnson in that offense. And Bowers did it with a pretty bad team. And then this team this year has been really bad as well. So I think that some of the production dip is injury based. And also he just hasn't scored a touchdown in a small 4-game sample. So I think they were trying to push into play, and I think they finally decided, okay, he's not 100%, so we need to sit him now.
Yeah, I definitely think he was playing hurt as well. That obviously hurt his stuff. I think I view him as a buy as well. I just would love to be able to get him on a couple of my more reloading teams as well, where I can afford to take that risk on his production, maybe still being a little limited if he's coming back from the injury. McBride, he's actually scored some touchdowns this year. It's been with it's been with Beef Brisket, Jacoby Brissett. So it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see if he can actually do it with Kyler when he comes back, hopefully this week. But you just love the scoring, and then what Warren is doing as a rookie, like just phenomenal. I mean, these guys are all obviously up here in tier one. Do we want to talk? I mean, Warren looks phenomenal. I don't think we have any concerns about him. He looks like he can be the one in that offense, even if they, like any concerns about any of these guys? Not really, guys. All right, so moving on to prices. JP, go ahead and read our cash price and our tier down type of situation.
Cash price, we're looking at about 3 firsts with maybe a plus. And a tier down, it is, you could put probably 2 tiers in between tier 1 and tier 2, but numbers don't work that way. So yeah, the tier down, we're looking at a 2 full first, which honestly makes a whole lot of sense to me. David, you want to talk about our positional pivots if we're looking to move for a quarterback or a running back?
Yeah, I think this is the biggest tier down price in all the tiers, isn't it? Pretty crazy jump we got here. But yeah, we're looking at guys kind of like we were just talking about, though, like Patrick Mahomes, Ashton Janty, Amon-Ra, someone Justin was just talking about. I think it all depends on your situation and your roster. Tight end's kind of unique in that if you've got one of these tier 1 guys and you have a monopoly on them, if you got like 2 or 3 of them in a tight end premium league, that's a pretty interesting strength because then nobody's going to beat you at tight end if you have the monopoly. So I don't mind holding on to it, but if you need some flexibility, I think these guys are all good pivots here, especially if you're trying to get into a quarterback. If you can get into a tier 2 quarterback for a tight end, that's pretty good.
Yeah, I can't blame taking those pivots in a tight end premium league, though. Having these guys it feels so good. This season, having Bowers has not felt so good because of the availability issues, but I can tell you last season it felt great and I won a championship with him. So definitely agree there. So tier 1 players, absolute studs. Tier 2 players, there's a potential absolute stud and a guy that honestly, I want you guys to tear us apart in the comments below about what to do with the other guy. And we're going to probably almost like redact him being in this tier potentially in this conversation. I don't know. It's going to be an interesting conversation as we talk about tier 2 and tier 3. JP, can you go ahead and read tier 2 for us?
Just 2 guys here with Sam Laporta and Tucker Kraft coming off of that monstrous performance. That was incredible. You guys watched that game? Yeah, you did, Justin. I know you did, David. It's a Packers game, so of course you did. But yeah, no, I mean, Tucker Kraft, he's been on the radar as one of the best tackle breakers pretty much since we've seen him getting snaps. And as we talked about at the top, like that is very, very important. They're feeding him so many design touches. They're throwing him screens and they're throwing them in high leverage situations. He really seems like he's ascending a lot. And the fact that they don't have a wide receiver 1 there kind of seems like he's becoming that number 1 weapon. And honestly, I could see him ascend into tier 1. I'm not going to predict that, but I think that is at least in the range of outcomes for him.
If he keeps producing like he's been producing, if he puts up a couple more 30-ish point games, right? If he is averaging 20 points a game at the end of the season as a tight end in tight end premium, like he'll at least be alone in tier 2 and worth 2+ firsts, and I think we'll definitely be approaching it. David, do you remember exactly what the question you posited about Sam Laporta was? Because I think it's a fascinating thought experiment, even though, of course, impossible to do in practice.
It's the discussion on Sam Laporta here. We've kind of been low on him as a podcast in general. We've always thought he's a little overrated. Not that he's not a good player. He's just in such a crowded offense, which is not great for tight ends. So what I asked the guys when we're looking at this tier, I don't think Tucker Kraft and Sam Laporta belong in the same tier. I don't even know if Laporta belongs in tier 3. So my question is if we remove all ADV, artificial dynasty value, remove all of that, which you can't do. It's a hypothetical, sure. It exists. His trade value is a thing that you have to consider, but let's remove that. And then in a second here, when we open up tier 3, let's revisit this. But my question was, how many guys in tier 3 you prefer over Sam Laporta? Let's call it rest of season, assuming you can't trade either. Just who are you going to take? And then maybe we expand that to dynasty, rest of career kind of thing. But he's tight end 12. He's a back end tight end 1 whose value is propped up off one really good season. And it was a tight end 1 season and a down year for tight ends. It wasn't even a very good tight end 1 season. So I don't know. I just think he's really overvalued. If I have any shares anywhere, I'm trying to sell them.
Yeah, it's a very interesting conversation. And I don't really think we talked about this last week and we kind of put them here after our last week's recording. We had a meeting where we just put everyone in tiers and we put them in the same tier because, I mean, look at them. They're back to back on keep, trade, cut. When we pulled the rankings, 54th and 55th, that market value is just, I mean, how do you ignore that? But we're talking about almost 6 points of production difference between the two, which it's genuinely, it's hard to ignore that, right? I think he's a hard sell. Like if I could get a tight end that's producing anything and a mid first, I'm very happy to sell Sam Laporta for that. Like I'd love to liquidate Sam Laporta. He's hard to liquidate right now, I feel like. Probably because the people that believe in him have drafted him and want value for him based off of what he's done. And the people who didn't want him didn't draft him. So a lot of people in the league are just like, I didn't draft him. I don't want him. You took him over me. Like, I don't want him. Even if we're years out later, like just a lot of people don't like Laporta, and I don't blame them for not liking Laporta. Is I guess what I'm trying to say here. Like that point difference. I think we all agree he's kind of a sell if you can get fair value. But if the best you can get is an early second for him, we're holding, right? We need a first, probably plus, but that plus is literally like insert. We'll get to any tight end that's worth starting later, right? David even posited the question, Zach Ertz in a first for Laporta or Hunter Henry in a first for Laporta. I'm probably okay with that. If it's like almost guaranteed a late, like 112, 111 for like it's a playoff team by first already. They're 7-1 or 8-0. I might hesitate on it, especially with the 2 tight end premium, but it's probably, but if you're offering me anything less than I probably almost need 2 firsts and like one of them, like a first and a 1-2 swap for Tucker Kraft, right? So if I'm selling Kraft, it's probably like 2 firsts almost that I want, if that makes sense. So they shouldn't be in the same tier off of that conversation already.
Right. And we were making these tiers before the Tucker Kraft real breakout, and it is tough because you put Tucker Kraft in a tier of his own. And anyways, we talked about 5 tight ends here. And I feel like Laporta is just not the only. He's the only one that you don't see him just bury a cornerback and then bury a safety and just like jaw dropping yak plays. I feel like that's part of it too. Is just he's not creating a whole lot of extra yards, and he's in the most crowded offense probably too. When you talk about like Amon-Ra is a high-end guy with other decent players around too. So, yeah, it is tough. He is living off that rookie year a little bit. It just feels like he's going to be around as a startable tight end for a long time, which Ertz is not going to be around for a long time, and Hunter Henry. But still, yeah, I agree. He's a sell for me. But the price that we have on these tight ends here, we're looking at a random first plus. We talked there's a little bit of a difference between these two right now for us. We'd have Tucker Kraft at tight end 4. But the tier up we already talked about, you're going to have to pay 2 firsts. And a tier down, we're looking at an early to mid second.
Positionally, you, according to Keep Trade Cut, and just that general, right, mid first value, right, you might be able to pivot to like a Dak Prescott. That can especially work at this point. And if a team is kind of giving up on the season and they want to get young at tight end, a Josh Jacobs, a George Pickens, they're in this neighborhood on Keep Trade Cut and in that neighborhood of a mid first value. Maybe a little bit of a plus on top of that. So moving on to tier 3, some interesting guys that David's going to ask us some questions about. Tier 3 going to contain Kittle, Loveland, Ferguson, that is Jake, not Terrence, and Gadsden, who JP, is it crazy? I feel like I have a couple shares of Sam Laporta, maybe 3 shares, and I have one around Gadsden. Is it crazy for me to say that? And David asked, which of these guys do you prefer over Laporta? I think the only one I might really prefer in this tier over Laporta is Gadsden.
He would be the one because he still has that upside to be really, really good. And honestly, he doesn't really fit what we talked about as this guy that is an incredible yak threat. But he plays with Justin Herbert, and he's making great catches, and he's getting open, and he actually ran the most routes on the team last year over all the wide receivers. So definitely is interesting, and he would be the one because if he puts out 2 duds over the next 2 weeks, no, I think I would not trade Laporta for him. But if he continues what he's done the last 2 weeks for another week or 2, yeah, he's going to continue to surge up the rankings, and I think some people probably already do have him as tight end 5.
Yeah, Kittle for me is a tough one just because we've seen injuries this year on a injury-riddled career. He is, when playing and healthy, possibly the best tight end in football. It's just a question of how much more is he going to be healthy throughout the rest of his career as he's older, tissue injuries pile up, and how much more is he going to be the best potential player in football as just he's a little bit older, he loses a little bit. 2, I know tight ends age a little different than other positions, but it concerns me with him. And then Ferguson, just the production, obviously a lot of the highest end of it came without Lamb there. We don't know that him and Pickens will be their long-term, Lamb and Pickens that is, but I definitely think he belongs here. I think Ferguson, probably this is kind of a range he's going to sit in for a few seasons. Do you kind of agree that this is, people might move up from this tier, people might move down from this tier? Do you think Ferguson's the most likely to stay in this tier, David?
Most likely. Realistically, yeah, probably because Kittle's getting old. These two guys got to go one way or the other, the two young guys. But if Ferguson, I mean, I know he had a dud last week, and we're a little worried now that Lamb's back. I get it. But he was tight end 1 before that. Now he's, tight end 3, I think? Tight end 2 in points per game, still tight end 1 in total points. So if he finished the season as tight end 1, he's 26. He's going to be 27 going into next year. I think he probably moves up a tier. One thing I wanted to touch on with Gadsden real quick, just I haven't had time to validate this, but I was just curious because I feel like he does have some yak ability personally. I think it's maybe more the system, and he turns out he does lead an average yak above expectation. So maybe there's a little bit of the system not setting him up for as much yak as like Tucker Kraft do. Like you're saying, he gets screen passes, he gets swing routes where they're just checkdowns and shit. They do, like, they use him in different ways. So I think that's part of it. But I think my biggest concern with Gadsden is he's not much of a blocker and they like to run the ball. So are they going to try to make it more of a 2 tight end set long term? We do see some tight ends that are really streaky. Like that's just kind of the nature of the position. So I'm a little concerned about Gadsden. I did sell low personally. I thought a couple of seconds. I sold one to Justin. I did sell him for Xavier Worthy, but I had Gadsden on over 50% of my teams when the season started. So I had some shares I wanted to get rid of just in case the bubble burst. I'm probably holding at this point, though, everything I have left. I've got 3 shares left. I mean, you want to offer me a solid first? Yeah, fine. Great. Let's do it. But I'm not seeking out the trades for him anymore. I want to hold on to some shares.
Yeah, and that price point we have for this tier, we were listed as a late first. Might not get it done for Gadsden in every league at this point, but I would very happily take a late first for Kittle. Very happily take a late first for Ferguson in most situations. I don't have any Ferguson, so I can't really give good advice on that. I feel like I should take it, but I almost want some exposure to him in case he stays as the tight end 1. And I would love re-rolling Loveland into a late first at this point, just because of how many mouths there are in the kitchen and the liquidity of the first versus Loveland. Tier up price, early mid-second, tier down, and early to mid-second as well. Probably more of a mid-second to tier down, I think. But positional pivots, JP, give us some options.
You're talking about that late first price point. Yeah, we're looking at Jared Goff, Zay Flowers. At running back, we have Javonte listed here. I'm not. It's close.
I was pulling off of keep trade cut, and there's just a vacuum between. I could have put Henderson here, maybe. There is an absolute vacuum between like the Josh Jacobs and Christian McCaffreys to like Javonte Williams. There's about a 25 player gap on keep trade cut. They're the only player, and there's Henderson at the RB position. So I was trying to give more of a pivot that's perhaps like competing, but yeah, RB's interesting as far as that goes.
It kind of does seem like the haves and have-nots. I mean, I'd say maybe Kyren could be close to that point, and we've seen Blake Corum start to take some carries away. I mean, Breece Hall's listed there, RB14, but nobody's selling him for that price, in my opinion. So,
yeah,
there really is a big gap between like the top 14, 15 running backs and the guys after. It is pretty crazy.
All right, and moving on from tier 3, which did we talk much about? Do we talk enough, David? Do you think about these guys versus Laporta? Do you want to touch on that anymore here?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me personally, if I'm competing, I would take the 2 studs, especially if in this situation, I do expect you should be able to get a small plus. I probably wouldn't trade him for Kittle straight up, but if I get a small plus, I would take Ferguson and Gadsden, no question. Loveland's tough just because, like I was saying at the top of the show, you really want your tight ends to be a top 2 or 3 option on their team. And then it does also matter how many like ancillary pieces behind them there are. So like Olamide Zaccheaus could get annoying, Luther Burden could get annoying, Cole Kmet could get annoying on this team. They could draft a running back with some pass catching prowess because I think they want to. I'm a little nervous about Loveland, so I would say Gadsden and Ferguson I would take over Laporta for sure, though.
So are we moving Laporta down this tier? Did we just decide?
He should probably honestly be in this tier. I think so, yeah. So if you've already ripped us in the comments below, know that we finally probably kind of come to our senses. I think he's kind of at the higher end of this tier, but I do think he's in this tier. And I certainly, if you can get a second to move from him to Ferguson, I mean, if you can get anything to move from him to Gadsden, I'd be pretty willing to do that. Like, again, like if you can get that second, because he's a little bit higher in keep trade cut value, overall ranking, et cetera, than some of these guys, I think that's a pretty smash deal at this point, just to take advantage of that ADV David was talking about. Now, moving along a little bit here to tier 4. Tier 4 players, JP, can you read some of these less appealing names and some of them that are kind of sexy? But,
yeah, interesting mix here. We got TJ Hawkinson, Harold Fenton, Dalton Kincaid, Kyle Pitts, and Mason Taylor. So 3 of these guys were former first-round picks who have had their ups and downs. Kyle Pitts, he's kind of PPR in his way here. Without Drake London, I mean, he definitely was getting a lot of targets. And Dalton Kincaid, like, we're like, we're still kind of in on him. kind of not at the same time. He's been decent this year, tied in 11 in points per game. None of these guys excite me outside of like Harold Fannin, his ascent. I think Mason Taylor, he's solid. He's showing good flashes. Like maybe he can continue to grow. Part of me just thinks that it's because there's not a lot of other receiving options outside of Garrett Wilson, but maybe it's Justin Fields dragging it down. I'm not sure, but Harold Fannin definitely sticks out as the most exciting guy. But TJ Hawkinson, he has some high end fantasy finishes on his resume.
It's an interesting tier, right? Hawkinson, I almost don't feel like he belongs here, but I feel like we're almost just like paying homage and respect to what he's done and hoping that he's actually able to, he's only 28, hoping he's able to get some of that juice back. Like it's just, he needs another little bit of time to get that juice back. Fannin has the most like mobility, the upward mobility to ascend, really go up. Am I crazy to feel like Pitts is the one that I'm most interested in buying from this tier though? Because he's still just 25. Like is JP, you watch probably the most of the Falcons. He's been doing some pretty solid things. A lot of it is just kind of PPR scam stuff like last week was, where I think he got like 20 points and wasn't really probably super NFL useful. Like, what do you see there? What do you think there?
He definitely looks healthier. Like as a mover, there was a lot of questions. Like, this guy was supposed to be super athletic, and he just wasn't looking like that the last couple of years. But he looks like he's gotten a little bit of that back. Seems like he's just more confident, and he's going. They're giving him a lot more opportunities as like a contested catch guy, and the staff has been hyping up. So I think the staff likes him. We'll see if the staff is still around after this year. But I think that just given how talented he is, just from his height and his speed and everything, I think that he's going to be around for a while. And if he gets on like a real high scoring offense, there's some guys that just love to throw it up to their tight end. Like I know Dak Prescott is like that a lot. Matt Stafford, he gives his guys chances like that too. He could have some high end seasons, honestly, because I don't see him as a big tackle breaker, but he's a guy that he gets yacked from just as being a speed guy, and he's a contested catch guy. So I think I'm there with you outside of Fannin. Fannin will be up top, and I think Pitts will be next because he is kind of seeing a rebirth. We've seen it a little bit with like David Njoku and Evan Ingram. We talked about these late breakouts haven't been as prevalent, but he's definitely looking better than he has.
Yeah, I think this group is really interesting to me. Let's start with the young guys. I agree with Fannin being an interesting player here. He's tied in 10 in points per game, and he's got Njoku ahead of him and a trash quarterback position. Maybe there's something there long term. They obviously got to add some receivers to be a competitive team, but they are the Browns, so who knows how long it'll take for that to happen. I think Fannin's interesting. I really think Mason Taylor's been very impressive. It's a worse passing situation than the Browns somehow, but whenever they happen to have a good game of passing, he's part of it. So I think long term, he's a good answer there. I do think they need to figure out their quarterback position before I'm going to say like go buy Mason Taylor necessarily, but I'm interested in him. I'm not selling him where I have him. And the other two guys for me, like Hawkinson, I'm out. Personally, I think his marker is down, and he's going to keep heading that way. Kincaid and Pitts, not to beat a dead horse, but why am I crazy to say I would take any seconds for plus Kincaid or Pitts for Laporta? Not to beat the dead horse, but they're the same thing. Kyle Pitts, Dalton Kincaid, Sam Laporta. What's the difference?
I'd take a second and these guys for Laporta in a heartbeat if that's possible.
Like Fannin and Taylor, I understand maybe you want to see a little more, maybe you need a little more certainty in what you're buying. But Kincaid, Pitts, I don't think there's a difference between them and Laporta. So give me a second on top and I'll take it. Yeah, I guess with that, I will cede my time.
No, I don't disagree with this. I think this is a fun tier to tear down to as well, with the exception of Hawkinson. I think Hawkinson maybe we should be putting out to pasture. Like I think we might even have him too high in tier 4. It's possible he should be going in tier 5. I might consider paying a mid second. I'm certainly not paying the early second cash price we talked about, or we have listed here for Hawkinson. Pretty willing to pay that early to mid second price for the rest of the guys in this tier though. Tier up one, again, we mentioned early mid second previously, and a tier down to the next range of guys we're looking to pick up a 2-3 swap. Positional pivots, Tua Tagovailoa, Alvin Kamara, Michael Pittman as some ideas. Looking at tier 5, which is going to be one of our, I think it's our last tier that we're going to be going to here. We have a lot of guys. We have Likely and Andrews, Kelsey, Njoku, Brenton Strange, Theo Johnson, and Dallas Goedert. So it's a pretty interesting veteran tier for the most part, with the exception of Theo Johnson and Strange, and Likely the young guys here. Feels kind of gross in these streets, but Goddard's, do we have any faith in Goddard, or it's been so touchdown buoyed? Do you have any interest, or are you just smash selling if you can based off of the production, guys?
I mean, at this price, if I'm competing, I think I'm probably keeping him unless I have another answer. Like tight ends are hard to predict. While you've got a hot hand, why not write it out? You know, if you want to give me like a 1-2 swap, yeah, all day, I'll take that first. But for just a second, I want the points, man.
And JP, just want to push you on Kelsey a little bit. You pretty much said he's dead, gone, toast with Rashee Rice back, and then he had, I think that might have been his best game of the season. Do you think that there's space for him to keep existing there? Especially, I think Worthy is a guy that, because of that injury he had earlier this season, like he's going to be playing with a harness the rest of the season, I heard, from that injury he had earlier this season. Like they might want to limit his touches almost as much as Kelsey's. Like, do you think there's a space for him to continue producing about these 16, 17 points a game that he's been producing?
Yeah, you're right. It was the best game. Was kind of my thing. Was I felt like tight end like 5 or 6 is where he's being drafted in a lot of like redraft underdog leagues, and I kind of felt like that was his ceiling. And he's there, and like you said, he produced with Rashee Rice. It was a really, really strong just passing performance. We'll see if it continues, but if it's going to come at Xavier Worthy's expense, like maybe he does stick here. The only play I actually saw of that game was Travis Kelce dropping a pass and causing an interception. So that that made me feel a little bit good. But no, his stat line was still really, really strong, and I think he lost some weight coming into the season, and I was worried like, okay, is that going to affect him as a blocker? Is he not going to get on the field as much? But I mean, he's doing really, really good, and Patrick Mahomes has stepped it up a whole lot too. So I think he'll probably be a mid to back and tight end one still, because he has that connection with Kelsey. I mean, he has that connection with Mahomes,
and he has a connection with himself. He really knows himself. And looking at it,
he also has a connection with the biggest pop star who just wrote a song about his private parts. So I don't know. I think if the biggest pop star in the world wrote song like that about me, I might be a little motivated.
And I do want to just touch on, like, I think Andrews at this point in his career is kind of just in the catch and fall down guy. I haven't seen that much like yak ability from him that we've seen at earlier points in his career. He's kind of a touchdown or bust guy. But Njoku, I do still believe in Njoku, the yak guy. I don't believe in Njoku, the yak guy in Cleveland. Obviously, he had a bigger extension recently, but like in the next year or two, I think it's very possible for them to move on from him, especially if they can get any reasonable draft capital for him, or just if they just cut him just to save money, honestly. Is he someone you're interested in trying to buy as he continues to struggle this season and is overshadowed by a younger guy there, with the like kind of hope that he can be tight end 3-4 in a better situation a year or two down the road? I think that's something I'm kind of interested in. Just curious about your guys' strategy.
I just worry he's already 29. So 2 years down the road, he's 31. And, I mean, he's got to find a good situation. He's got to keep his health by then. I guess my answer is for the right price. Yeah, but of course, I'm always willing to buy someone for the right price. What is that price? If I get him for, I think our tier 5 price, we're going to say here's a couple of thirds. Guess like I'm interested on a rebuilder maybe to some degree, but I don't think he's someone I'm actively trying to buy. I don't know if I'm trying to buy anyone in this tier as a rebuilder, to be honest with you. And that's kind of, I wanted to talk about Isaiah Likely for a minute. Is it just time to give up on the hope that he's anything? He's got 2.8 points per game.
We have to have that 1 point head hope for him to give up, but I think so. Yes, absolutely. I've dropped him in leagues even a year and a half ago. I dropped him in a very shallow league.
I did see recently that this week, I mean, he was coming back from that injury. I saw that this week he surpassed Mark Andrews in routes run. So, I mean, I'm not quite going to give up. But, yeah, I mean, do you think Lamar not being out maybe it could be part of it? Because Lamar, he's just a much better passer. Honestly, Andrews, he's just been kind of a contested catch winner. That's what he was getting with the touchdowns last year. But likely he's kind of more that screen pass guy that we've seen. I mean, if they do move on from Andrews, maybe we see it from Likely. But, yeah, I think his keep trade cut value has been a little bit too high for quite a while. And Njoku, yeah, I think you're right, David. Like, we'll see if that yak ability starts to come down for David Njoku. But, I mean, he was tied in 4 in points per game just last year. So that one is tough for me because I think he was probably like an early second to mid-second earlier before the season started. So if I can get him for like a 2-3 turn, I think he's good enough that he'll stick around. And at that price point, I would buy him. But if it's a mid-second, I definitely would not.
Hey, JP, just real quick, think about this. Kenyon Sadiq in Baltimore. Wouldn't that be fun? Super athlete, good blocker, going to be on the field all the time, completely replace these guys. I don't know, just thought of it. I thought it'd be fun.
Yeah, I think it'd be fun, but if they got to the 2 tight ends already, I don't think they would do it, but it would be fun to see.
Do they have 2 tight ends, though?
Send him to the Chiefs. How about that? Tell me that one.
And of course, Theo Johnson, he's an interesting little stash play, very athletic tight end in year 2, tied to a young quarterback. I'm very happy to have him, buy him cheap when you can get him cheap. We'll talk prices in a second. I'm not sure I'm really excited to pay 2/3 for him. It's more like a third and like Zach Ertz if I'm starting to rebuild, right? 2/3 that way, right? Then 2 cash thirds. I probably almost prefer the thirds to him. Brenton Strange, pretty similar thing. He's producing a little bit, had some injury issues, but not producing difference making. Why would I rather have Brenton Strange for 2/3 than I would Hunter Henry in a third that I can then draft a tight end with in the future? Is almost kind of, again, the route I'm going to be taking here. The least common denominator. They're just cool names. So again, cash price 2/3. Again, the way I'm probably very often going for that on some of these guys is, just giving some actionable advice. Kelsey and Goddard, I'm trying to get a second for if I'm competing. We aren't probably paying a second for these guys. Near the playoffs, I'm okay with paying a second for Goddard and Kelsey if we know that they're like a playoff second and we know we're in the playoffs, and we know we need that person in our lineup. And if they're still playing how they're playing right now. But today, no. So then again, 2-3 swap to tier up and any third to tier down. Like we previously said, that's the selling, right, that we're looking to do is Zach Ertz, Noah Fant in the third, right, to move off of one of these guys is something we're pretty willing to do as a pivot typically. I think Goddard and Kelsey are the exceptions for me. Andrews hurts to do it with, but I probably should be, shouldn't I?
Trying to buy?
Sell and like get Hunter Henry in a third and just give up on.
Sure, yeah.
I just feel like it's hard to give up on a guy that was, a second round startup pick 3 or 4 years ago. But what's he doing?
How long has it been? Yeah, how long has it been since he's played like that?
It's a long time. He's more dropping important balls against the Buffalo Bills recently. And JP, what are some positional pivots at this position?
I mean, at quarterback, this price point is just anybody who's starting and not young. So you got Aaron Rodgers, he's been playing pretty decent, honestly. Steelers, I'm pleasantly surprised with what he's doing. And we got Tony Pollard and you got Keenan Allen. So these are kind of just plug-in guys. They're not obviously core assets at all. Keenan Allen, I think I'd like to buy him for 2/3. Tony Pollard, sure. Yeah, I can start him. So do you guys think Keenan Allen could be worth a playoff second? Because that's kind of what I traded, close to what I traded to acquire him.
Yeah, I just don't think that I'm really looking to pay that because I don't trust that he's not going to tail off over the back end of the season and that the younger guys will be performing better down the stretch, right? And with Gadsden coming into play. But yeah, you see that getting done, and that's what people usually want me to trade for him when I'm having conversations about plugging in a wide receiver. And moving on from tier 5, we're going to talk about honorable mentions. David, can you briefly just read our producing honorable mentions for us?
Yeah, top 2 names we have said often on this show, Hunter Henry, Zach Ertz, both a little over 12 points per game. And by the way, these are all, I should have said this earlier in the video, every single points per game listing is 175 tight end premium. After that, Juwan Johnson, who's still at 13 points per game, had a hot start, kind of died off a little bit, but he's still very involved in that offense. They're also looking at maybe trading a receiver. I've heard a lot of rumors regarding Olave and Shaheed. They trade one of those guys, Johnson only going to get more involved. And then Dalton Schultz quietly having a startable season as well. So any of those guys for, a late third, a couple of fourths, a third and a throw-in running back that, is borderline rosterable, something like that. That's how I'd be looking to get these guys.
Looking over the stashes, we got the young guys here. So Terrence Ferguson and Elijah Arroyo, these guys were going at the top rookie third rounds. I'd still pay a random third because, these tight ends, I think they flashed some stuff. AJ Barner, he's kind of been a thorn on the side there. He's looking actually pretty good. And Gunnar Helm and JT Sanders, personally, I'm really impressed with what Gunnar Helm is doing. He's making a lot of big plays. They don't really have a lot of weapons, so maybe that is part of it. He was very firmly on our radar before he hurt his ankle and then blew the combine. We weren't sure about his athleticism, but yeah, JT Sanders, he's definitely trailing off, but we saw him do some pretty interesting stuff down the stretch. So I'd still pay a fourth because he's very young and he's a good receiver, I think.
Yeah, young tight ends like those, again, we don't really necessarily expect year 3 breakouts the same way that we used to. So JT Sanders, we're okay with waiting though because it's been such an abysmal situation. But tight ends are a great place to have these. And again, Gunnar Helms, JT Sanders, I don't necessarily want to pay a fourth for those guys, right? But ask for them as a throw-in on a trade, right? Because say you're trading with somebody and it's close and they don't have a fourth to give you, give me that JT Sanders, give me that Gunnar Helm, give me that Elijah Arroyo, right? Give me this tight end. I want to aim for anything other than wide receivers in this range, right? running backs in this range, the backups, quarterbacks in this range, the backups and these tight ends, like these stash guys, just a way to, again, talk about how to try to acquire these stashes without paying for this price, right? That throw-in piece. For whatever reason, people love these tight end stashes. So I think we kind of talked this position out. RB next week's a lot more exciting of a position, so we will hop on that next week. Please reply to that community question in the comment below. Love hearing from you. Hit that like and subscribe if you haven't. So again, thank you for listening for another episode of the Dyno Construction Podcast. We hope you found this as helpful for you as it was for us. Please remember again, like I said, to like and subscribe wherever you listen to review. And from all of us here at the Dyno Construction Podcast, until next time.